Mornings in Peoria always began the same way for me. Not with an alarm clock, no. When you're 72 years old, your own body becomes a damn accurate chronometer. I woke up at exactly 6 in the morning, regardless of whether it was winter or summer outside. Margaret always laughed at this peculiarity of mine. "Garth Holder, you're more stubborn than an old clock," she would say. It's been 5 years since Margaret passed away, and I still wake up at 6. It's as if my body refuses to accept that I can now sleep longer. There's no rush, no one is waiting. I got out of bed, my joints creaking. After 40 years behind the wheel of a truck, my knees had turned into two unreliable hinges. Truckers rarely boast good health in their old age. But I had this house, small but paid off, with a view of Detweiler Park. That morning I hobbled into the kitchen, put the kettle on, and stood at the window looking at the neighbor's yard. Riley, the boy from across the street, was setting up a swing set for his twins. He's a good kid, always says hello, sometimes helps carry groceries. Not like my own flesh and blood. And I drank my tea on the porch, watching our street wake up. One of the few joys I had left. After breakfast, oatmeal, as Dr. Ramirez had advised, my day followed its usual schedule. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I went to the Morning Cup, a cafe 2 blocks from my house. On Tuesdays, I met with Oberon Finch, an old friend from my days working at the transportation company. On Thursdays, I stopped by the library to pick up movies that were playing in theaters when Margaret and I first met. Today was Wednesday Morning Cup day. I put on my usual clothes, a plaid shirt, worn jeans, and a Peterbilt logo cap that I'd been wearing for the last 15 years. I locked the door, went down the steps, and walked down the sidewalk, leaning on my cane. It wasn't that I couldn't walk without it, it just made me feel more confident. Morning Cup was my little oasis of calm. Always the same table by the window, always the same cup of strong coffee without sugar and a fresh newspaper. They knew me here, and no one tried to strike up unnecessary conversation. "Good morning, Mr. Holder." The usual. Monica, the girl behind the counter, smiled at me. She had been working here for 3 years and was studying accounting at college. "Yes, dear. And a newspaper, if you please." I sat down in my usual spot and opened the newspaper. Nothing had changed in the world. Wars, scandals, some new technology that would change our lives. My life was unlikely to change, except perhaps toward its inevitable end. "Mr. Holder, your son called the cafe," Monica said, setting my coffee in front of me. "He asked if you were here. I told him you had just arrived." I frowned. Edric never called the cafe. How did he even know I came here? "He said he'd be here in 10 minutes and wanted to talk to you." Monica smiled. Was I right to tell him? "Yes, it's fine," I muttered, although I felt uneasy inside. Edric hadn't been interested in my affairs for many years. He usually showed up on Thanksgiving, sometimes at Christmas, if his wife Tamsin didn't insist on visiting her relatives. Exactly 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang, and my son entered the cafe. 45 years old, wearing an expensive suit and tie, with a neatly trimmed beard. A typical office worker, an insurance appraiser with ambitions and a permanent look of slight dissatisfaction on his face. My face, only without wrinkles and with a different personality. "Hi, Dad." Edric smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. I decided to stop by on my way to work. "How are you?" "Fine." I put down the newspaper and looked at my son. Something was definitely wrong. Why the sudden concern? "Come on, can't I just visit my father?" Edric sat down opposite me and ordered a latte. "You look good." Full of energy. "For an old man, you mean?" "Dad, why are you like this?" Edric shook his head. "Tamsin and I are just worried." "You live alone. You rarely call." "I called on my granddaughter's birthday." Jennifer didn't seem too happy about it. My only granddaughter, a 16-year-old girl, with her nose perpetually buried in her phone, wasn't too interested in talking to her old grandfather. "She's a teenager, you understand." "Nothing personal." Edric took a sip of coffee. "Listen, I was thinking, maybe I could come over this weekend, help around the house, fix the porch maybe?" I stared at my son. In the last 5 years, he had never once offered to help around the house. "The porch is fine." Riley helped me reinforce the railing last month. "Riley? Who's that?" "A neighbor. A young guy. He has twins," I shrugged. "A normal guy, not like some people." Edric let the jab go unnoticed. "Anyway, I think the house could use a man's touch. You can't handle everything on your own, can you?" I've been handling it for 5 years, ever since your mother died, I said curtly. And I managed before that too, when I was away from home for months at a time because of my flights. We managed without your help before. My son frowned but quickly put a fake smile back on his face. Okay, Dad, I was just offering. But I'll still come by on Saturday to check on you. Maybe we can have lunch together. I shrugged. Something told me that even if I refused, Edric would come anyway. Whatever you want. He left 10 minutes later, leaving me puzzled. What had gotten into him? In all the time since Margaret's death, he had never shown such concern. The rest of the day passed as usual. I went to the grocery store, bought bread and milk, and chatted with the cashier, Doris. Then I went home to watch an old John Wayne Western. In the evening, Oberon called, and we agreed to meet tomorrow in the park, weather permitting. When Edric's black Lexus pulled up in the driveway on Saturday, I was ready for his visit. I had tidied up the house the day before, even though I usually kept it tidy. Margaret had always kept the house clean, and I continued that tradition. Old habits die hard. Edric arrived alone without Tamsin, which surprised me. Is your wife busy? I asked, letting my son into the house. She has a meeting with a real estate agent. We're thinking about buying a bigger house. Edric walked into the living room, looking around with a newfound interest. His gaze slid over the furniture and walls as if assessing them. Jennifer's about to go to college. Why do you need a bigger house? I watched my son walk around the rooms looking everywhere. We need a study. Tamsin has started doing interior design. She needs space to work. Ah, I nodded, even though I knew it was a lie. My daughter-in-law had never shown any interest in design, but I decided not to argue. Edric walked into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator without asking. Dad, you've got almost nothing in here. Are you eating okay? Fine. I don't eat much, and I go to the store twice a week to get fresh food. He closed the refrigerator and went into the bathroom. The tile is coming off here. And the faucet is leaking. Did you call a plumber? Why? I can tighten the faucet myself. At your age, crawling under the sink? Edric shook his head. Dad, you need help. Admit it. We returned to the living room. I sat down in my chair, and my son remained standing, looking at the photos on the wall. When was the last time you saw a doctor? He asked suddenly. Last month, regular checkup. Everything's fine if you're wondering. And what did the doctor say? Edric turned to me. That I'm in great shape for my age. My blood pressure is a little high, but within normal limits. What about your memory? Dizziness. My son looked at me as if he expected to hear about serious problems. No memory problems. I remember the birthdays of all my family members, even those who prefer to forget about me. Edric ignored the jab. Dad, I'm seriously worried. This house is too big for one person, and there's so much work to do here. You know, Tamsin and I were thinking, about what? Maybe you should think about moving to a place where they'll take care of you. Where there are people your age, medical care. I stared at my son, not believing my ears. Are you suggesting I move into a nursing home? Nowadays, they're called senior living communities, Edric quickly corrected me. The conditions there are very good. Tamsin and I have looked at several options. You looked at options? I felt a wave of anger rising. Without my knowledge, we were just gathering information, Edric spread his hands. To discuss with you. Discuss? I smiled bitterly. You don't want to discuss anything with me, son. You want to send me away somewhere? No, Dad. We're really worried. You need constant care, company, attention. I stood up, leaning on the armrests of my chair. I don't need constant care. I'm not disabled. And I'm not a senile old man. No one is saying you're senile, Edric sighed irritably, but you're not getting any younger. And this house, it needs care that you can't provide. I looked around the living room. Yes, the house wasn't new. Yes, the wallpaper was peeling in places, and the roof needed repair. But this was my home. Every corner held memories of Margaret, of our life together. I'm not moving anywhere, I said firmly, and let's drop the subject. Edric pursed his lips but nodded. Okay, Dad, I just wanted you to know about this option, just in case. The rest of his visit was tense. We had pizza for dinner and watched part of a baseball game on TV. All the while, I could feel my son's scrutinizing gaze on me. He watched how I held my fork, how I got up from my chair, as if looking for signs of senility. It infuriated me, but I tried not to show it. When Edric left, I felt relieved, but I couldn't shake an unpleasant feeling. Something was brewing, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. The following Wednesday, when I returned from the morning cup, a surprise awaited me at the doorstep. Edric was sitting on the porch with some papers in his hands. Next to him was a stack of glossy brochures. Dad, he stood up smiling. I called, but you didn't answer. I was at the cafe. I climbed the steps, taking out my keys. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at work? I took the day off. I wanted to show you something. Edric handed me one of the brochures. On the glossy cover, gray-haired people smiled against the backdrop of a beautiful building with columns. Evening Dawn, a community for active longevity, read the inscription. It's a 15-minute drive from here, Edric said enthusiastically. They have 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, a swimming pool, a movie theater, a library, and round-the-clock medical care. I threw the brochure on the coffee table and walked into the kitchen. I told you, I'm not moving anywhere. Edric followed me, not giving up. Dad, at least take a look. It's a wonderful place. People your age live there. Interesting, active people. They always have events, excursions. I don't need events and excursions, I said, pouring myself some filtered water. I'm fine here. But you're all alone here. Edric spread his arms. That's not normal. At your age, you need company, support. At my age, I need to be left alone. I looked my son straight in the eye. Especially those who haven't been interested in my life for years and now suddenly care about my well-being. Edric pursed his lips in offense. You're being unfair. I've always cared about you. Really, I smiled bitterly. And how did that show? 3 phone calls a year? Christmas cards? I have my own life, my own family. Edric raised his voice. You pushed us away. You were always traveling, and when you were home, all you did was criticize. Old grudges, always the same. I worked to feed you and educate you. I shook my head. But that's not the point. You were almost absent from my life for 5 years after Mom died. And now suddenly you're so concerned? Why is that? Edric was silent, looking away. Then he sighed. Okay, the thing is, Tamsin and I are worried. We can see that the house is falling apart, that you can no longer take care of it. What will happen in a year? In 2 years? Whatever will be, will be. And who will solve the problems when you can't? Edric looked at me defiantly. Me, of course. It will all fall on me. So that's it. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried about himself, about the inconveniences my old age would bring him. No one is asking you to solve my problems. I'll take care of myself. Dad, be realistic. You're getting old. This house is too big for you. Why hold on to it? Sell it. Move to a nice place where they'll take care of you. I narrowed my eyes as I looked at my son. And where will the money go? Edric hesitated. Well, part of it will go toward paying for your stay at Evening Dawn. And the rest, Ron, could be invested so you have some extra income. Invested, I nodded. And who's going to do that? You. I could help, of course. I have a financial advisor I know. I raised my hand, stopping the flow of lies. You know what, Edric? I'm tired. Let's continue this conversation another time. My son looked disappointed but nodded. Okay, Dad, but promise you'll at least look through the brochures. Just familiarize yourself with the options. I promise, I lied just to get rid of him. After Edric left, I sat in my chair for a long time, looking at the brochures. Something told me that my son wouldn't give up, and that bothered me more than I wanted to admit. The following weeks turned into a strange game. Edric began to show up with frightening regularity, sometimes with groceries I hadn't asked for, sometimes with new brochures for nursing homes, sometimes just to check in. Once he came with Tamsin, which surprised me the most. My sister-in-law rarely bothered to visit me. She considered our neighborhood too simple for her refined taste. Garth, Tamsin kissed the air near my cheek without touching it. She smelled of expensive perfume and false concern. How nice that you keep the house tidy. It sounded like a compliment, but I knew her well enough to catch the hidden meaning. It's surprising that the old man isn't covered in dirt yet. I'm not a wreck, Tamsin, I replied dryly, and I've never been sloppy. Oh, I didn't mean that, she smiled her trademark smile, the one that never reached her eyes. It's just that many single men. I'm not many, I interrupted. I'm a specific man who is perfectly capable of taking care of himself. Edric intervened, clearly trying to defuse the situation. Dad, we brought you something. Take a look. He took another glossy brochure out of his briefcase, this time with a picture of some kind of resort complex. Sunny Harbor, a place where your golden years will truly be golden. It's a new center. Tamsin leaned closer, her voice becoming honeyed. Imagine a heated pool, spa treatments, A personal chef. And the cost is probably astronomical, I remarked. Money is not a problem, Edric shrugged. If you sell this house, you'll have enough to live there and still have money left over. So that's it. I looked at my son more closely. So you're suggesting I sell the house and move there? Exactly, Tamsin beamed. It's the perfect solution. The house is too big for one person. It requires constant maintenance. At Sunny Harbor, professionals will take care of you, Edric chimed in. Plus, there's socializing, entertainment, medical care. I raised my hand to stop the flow. I've lived in this house for 30 years. You grew up here, Edric. Your mother died here. And you're suggesting I just sell it like an old car? Dad, a house is just a building. You'll take your memories with you, Edric said gently, as if talking to a child. What about the money from the sale? I wasn't going to beat around the bush. Tamsin and Edric exchanged glances. Part of it will go toward paying for your stay at the center, and the rest can be put into an account. Edric hesitated. For safety. For my safety or yours, I smiled. And who will manage this account? Well, I could help with the financial management, Edric smiled. You know I've always been good at that. I almost laughed. My son, who was perpetually living beyond his means and mired in debt, was offering to help me with my finances. Ridiculous. No, I said firmly. I'm not moving anywhere. This house is mine, and I'm staying here until the end. But Garth, Tamsin began, you have to think about the future. Nobody stays young forever. What if you need constant care? Then I'll hire a caregiver, I snapped, with my money. In my house, Edric sighed, exchanging a glance with his wife. Dad, we just want what's best for you. Think about it, okay? Don't reject the idea right away. They left the brochures behind, and after they left, I stacked them neatly on the coffee table. Not to study, but to remind myself that my own son was trying to get rid of me. That night, I dreamed of Margaret. She was sitting in her favorite chair by the window, knitting a scarf for Edric, even though it was July outside, and she said, Don't trust him, Garth. He's always been too much like my father. I woke up with a feeling of loss and anxiety. Margaret had always been a buffer between me and my son. She smoothed over our conflicts and found compromises. Without her, our relationship was laid bare in all its ugliness. The morning of that day began as usual. Oatmeal, tea, the newspaper. But thoughts of yesterday's visit kept me awake. I remembered how it all began, our relationship with Edric. The boy was a quiet, impressionable child, more attached to his mother. I was often away. Truckers rarely managed to be model family men. Trips could last for weeks, and I missed birthdays, school events, and important moments in his life. When I returned, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Edric looked at me warily and sometimes with resentment. I remember the day I missed his elementary school graduation. I was stuck in Minnesota because of a broken-down truck, and I called home to apologize. Margaret said she understood, but I could hear my son crying on the other end of the line. When I returned 3 days later, Edric didn't speak to me for a week. I tried to explain that I was working for them so that the family would have everything they needed, but how could a 10-year-old understand that? To him, I was just a father who once again didn't show up when he was needed. His teenage years only made the situation worse. Edric became withdrawn, spending hours in his room, refusing to spend time with me even on the rare days when I was home. I didn't know how to reach him. Being quick-tempered by nature, I often lost my temper, yelled, and demanded respect. This only drove us further apart. I remember one particularly painful episode. Edric was 16, and I had just returned from a 2-week trip when I discovered that he had used my tools to repair a friend's bicycle. The tools were scattered all over the garage, some of them dirty, and one wrench was missing. I flew into a rage. I yelled that he didn't respect other people's work, that these tools were my job, my bread and butter. Edric yelled back that I had no right to teach him respect when I had never respected him, always putting work before family. Margaret tried to calm us down, but it was too late. Edric ran out of the house, slamming the door, and didn't return until morning. I found him asleep on the sofa, covered him with a blanket, and went to my bedroom. We never talked about that incident, or many others. When he left for college, I felt both relief and bitterness. Relief that there would be no more daily conflicts. Bitterness from the realization that we had never found common ground. He rarely called, came home only on holidays, and even then reluctantly. After college, he got a job at an insurance company and married Tamsin, a cold, calculating woman who made it clear from the start that she wasn't too interested in maintaining family ties. Margaret suffered from this estrangement, but never blamed her son. "He's just protecting himself, Garth," she would say. "From what?" I would ask. "From pain, from disappointment, from the fear of being abandoned again." I sighed as I returned to the present. Maybe she was right. Maybe I really deserved to be treated that way, but I certainly didn't deserve to be kicked out of my own home under the pretext of caring. The doorbell rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. Standing on the doorstep was Oberon Finch, my old friend and former colleague, now retired like me. In his youth, Oberon had worked as a lawyer for a short time, then left to join a transport company, saying he was tired of lies and paperwork. But he still had his legal knowledge, and sometimes it came in handy. "You look terrible, old man," he said instead of greeting me. "What happened?" I let him in, and we sat down in the living room. I told him about Edric's visits, the brochures, and the persistent offers to move to a nursing home. "They want your house," Oberon nodded after listening to me. "That's obvious. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "Refuse them, of course," I shrugged. "It's my house. I'm not going anywhere." "And rightly so," Oberon nodded. "But be prepared for them not to back down. If they've decided they want the house, they'll be persistent." "What can they do? Take me away by force?" Oberon paused, then looked at me seriously. "It's possible. If they convince a doctor that you need constant care, or worse, that you're incapable of making decisions on your own." I shuddered at the thought. "They can't. I'm of sound mind and memory." "Of course," Oberon patted me on the shoulder. "But be careful. Keep your documents in a safe place. And if you notice anything suspicious, call me immediately." After Oberon left, I couldn't calm down for a long time. Could my own son really do such a thing? Declare me incompetent for the sake of the house? No, that's too much even for Edric. I tried to push the dark thoughts away. Everything will be fine. I won't let myself be fooled. But a few days later, something happened that made me seriously concerned. I was looking for my passport. I wanted to check if it had expired. I usually kept it in my desk drawer with other important documents, but the passport wasn't there. I searched the whole house, checked all the drawers, cupboards, even looked under the mattress. Nowhere. Instead, I discovered that the title deed to the house was missing. I was absolutely sure that I hadn't moved these documents. I had a clear system for storing important papers, developed over many years. My passport, birth certificate, insurance policies, house and car documents. Everything was kept in the top drawer of my desk, in a special folder. Someone had been rummaging through my things, and that someone could only be Edric. But why would he want my documents? I remembered Oberon's warning and felt a chill run down my spine. Could my son really be up to something sinister? I called him immediately. "Edric, it's Dad. Have you been in my desk?" "What? What are you talking about?" His voice sounded surprised, but I didn't believe it. "My passport and house documents are missing. Did you take them?" "No, of course not," he protested. "What makes you think that?" "Because no one but you has had access to my house in the last few weeks. Dad, you probably just put them somewhere else and forgot." "That happens at your age," he said condescendingly. "At my age, I still remember perfectly well where I put my documents," I snapped. "If you took them, return them immediately." "I didn't take anything," Edric sighed. "But if you want, I'll come over and help you look for them." "No, thank you. I didn't want to see him right now. I'll figure it out myself." After our conversation, I searched the house thoroughly once again. To my surprise, I found the missing documents in the kitchen cupboard, among the cookbooks. I would never, under any circumstances, have put them there. It was an alarming sign. Someone had not only rummaged through my things, but also moved the documents to inappropriate places. Why? So that I couldn't find them? Or to make it look like I was losing my memory? In the days that followed, I began to notice other oddities. My reading glasses, which always lay on my bedside table, were found in the bathroom. My car keys were moved from the hook in the hallway to the kitchen table, and once I found my checkbook in the freezer. I knew for sure that I hadn't put these things in such places. Someone, and I had little doubt that it was Edric, was breaking into my house while I was away and deliberately moving things around to make it look like I was becoming absent-minded and forgetful. I changed the locks. I didn't tell my son. Let him be surprised when his key no longer fits. The next day the phone rang. It was Edric, and he was furious. "Did you change the locks?" he asked without preamble. "Yes," I didn't deny it. "The old ones were worn out." "And you didn't give me a new key?" Why do you need a key to my house? I asked calmly. So I can check if you're okay. He raised his voice. What if something happens to you? Then you'd call the police or an ambulance, like any normal person would. I remained unperturbed. You don't need a key to my house, Edric. I'm your son, he almost shouted. I have the right. You have no right to enter my house without my knowledge and go through my things, I interrupted. Yes, I know you did that, and I know why. You want me to look forgetful, absent-minded, incapable of taking care of myself, but you won't succeed. There was silence on the other end of the line. You're paranoid, Edric finally said. You need help. The only help I need is to be left alone, I sighed. Listen, I know you want my house, but I'm not going anywhere, you understand? This is my house, and I'm staying here until the end. You don't understand, Edric's voice softened, almost pleading. Tamsin and I are really worried about you. The house is too big. You can't manage to take care of it. What will happen in the winter? Who will clear the snow and monitor the heating? I'll manage just as I have for the past 5 years, I said firmly. And if I need help, I'll hire someone. With my own money. Dad, Edric paused, I'll come tomorrow. We need to have a serious talk. I didn't argue, let him come. Now that I understand his game, I'll be ready. After talking to my son, I called Oberon and told him what had happened. You did the right thing changing the locks, he approved. But be prepared for the possibility that they may go further. Perhaps you should consult a lawyer, draw up a will, and clearly state your wishes. Do you think it will come to that? I was stunned. I hope not, Oberon sighed, but it's better to be safe than sorry. And another thing, Garth. Be careful. Don't drink or eat anything that Edric or Tamsin bring you. That phrase made me shiver. Did my friend really think that his own son might? No, that was too much even for Edric. I went to bed with a heavy heart. Tomorrow would be a difficult conversation. I had to make it clear to my son that I would not give in to his manipulation, that I would not allow myself to be deceived. This house was all I had left of my former life, of my memories of Margaret, and I had no intention of parting with it. In the morning, I discovered that my blood pressure pills had disappeared from the medicine cabinet in the bathroom. In their place was a different package, similar but not the one prescribed by Dr. Ramirez. I studied the label carefully. It was a completely different medication. Someone had replaced my pills, and that someone clearly wanted me to take the wrong medicine, perhaps to become disoriented, distracted, the perfect candidate for a nursing home. I flushed the replaced pills down the toilet. Then I called the pharmacy and ordered a new package of my usual medication with delivery. The clock showed 10 in the morning. Edric promised to come for lunch. I had time to prepare for this meeting, which could be decisive in our relationship. I felt that the climax was approaching, and my future depended on the outcome of this conversation. I sat down in a chair and waited, gathering my thoughts. For the first time in a long time, I felt not just irritation or resentment towards my son, but real fear. Fear of what he might be capable of for money. By noon, Edric still hadn't shown up. I looked out the window several times, went out on the porch, even called him, but his phone was off. It was strange. My son was usually punctual when it came to his interests. The day dragged on slowly. I made lunch, watched the news, reread the newspaper. A strange uneasiness wouldn't leave me. After talking to Oberon, I seriously feared that Edric might take some radical steps. But the longer he was gone, the more I convinced myself that I was exaggerating the danger. After all, what could he do? Force me out of my own home? That would be illegal. By 4 o'clock, I decided he wasn't coming at all. Maybe it was for the best. I was tired of these endless conversations about nursing homes, his fake concern, his suspicions. Perhaps now that I had openly accused him of intrusion and manipulation, he had decided to back off. I was just about to go for my evening walk when I heard the sound of cars pulling up. Looking out the window, I saw not only Edric's black Lexus, but another vehicle, a white minibus with the Evening Dawn logo. My heart skipped a beat. What was going on? Edric and Tamsin got out of the Lexus, and two men in medical uniforms and a woman in a strict suit with a folder in her hands got out of the minibus. They all headed towards my house. I opened the door before they had a chance to ring the bell. What's all this about? I asked, looking straight at my son. Edric looked tense but determined. Dad, this is Miss Hendricks from Evening Dawn, he said, pointing to the woman with the folder, and two paramedics, Tom and Brian. We're here to help you move. Move? I couldn't believe my ears. What move are you talking about? I'm not going anywhere. Mr. Holder, Miss Hendricks stepped forward. Your son has arranged for you to stay at our center. We have excellent facilities, medical care, entertainment programs. I'm not interested in your facilities, I interrupted, and I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. Dad, Edric tried to put his hand on my shoulder, but I pulled away. We've discussed everything with Dr. Lancaster. You'll be better off under the supervision of specialists. What Dr. Lancaster? I was starting to get angry. My doctor is Dr. Ramirez, and he thinks I'm in great shape for my age. Dr. Lancaster is a geriatric specialist, Tamsin interjected in her honeyed voice. He has reviewed your medical history and believes you need constant care. What medical history? I was stunned by the audacity. No one has access to my medical information without my consent. Dad, you gave your consent, remember? Edric looked at me with feigned concern. Last month when I took you to the doctor. That was a blatant lie. I hadn't gone to any doctor with Edric, and I certainly hadn't signed any consent forms. You're lying, I said bluntly. I didn't go anywhere with you, and I didn't sign anything. See? Edric addressed the others. He's forgetting important events. It's happening more and more often. I'm not forgetting anything, I raised my voice. You're lying to make me look incompetent. Mr. Holder, Miss Hendricks intervened again. There's no need to worry. We're here to help. We have all the necessary documents, she patted the folder. Your son is acting in your best interests. The only person my son is acting in the best interests of is himself. I felt my heart begin to pound. Now I ask you all to leave my house. Immediately. Dad, Edric signaled to the orderlies who were starting to approach me. Don't make this difficult. We're taking you anyway, willingly or unwillingly. It was a threat, a real threat. I looked around for something I could use as a weapon, but I knew I didn't stand a chance against two strong orderlies. If you touch me, I'll call the police. I straightened up, trying to sound more confident than I actually was. Mr. Holder, Miss Hendricks took a document out of her folder. We have Dr. Lancaster's conclusion that you need professional care, and your son's consent, as your next of kin, to transfer you to our center. Everything is completely legal. I glanced at the document. There was indeed a signature and a stamp on it, but I had no idea if they were real or not. I had never met this Dr. Lancaster. This is fake, I threw the paper away. I'm calling the police. I reached for the phone, but one of the orderlies was quicker. He snatched the phone from my hands and handed it to Edric. Dad, please, my son looked almost pleading. Don't make a scene. It's for your own good. How can you allow this? I turned to Miss Hendricks. You can see that they're taking me away against my will. Mr. Holder, she smiled a professional smile. Many of our residents resist at first. It's a normal reaction, but you'll see that you'll like Evening Dawn. We have very comfortable conditions. I realized it was useless to argue. These people had come with a plan and were not going to back down. At least let me pack my things, I asked, trying to buy some time. Maybe I could call Oberon or my neighbor Riley. Oh, don't worry, Tamsin waved her hand. We've already packed everything. Everything you need is in these bags. She pointed to 2 travel bags that I only now noticed in the hands of the second paramedic. Did you go through my things? I was stunned by such audacity. We just helped you pack, Dad. Edric tried to take my arm. Everything you need is there. Clothes, toiletries, medicine. I pulled my arm away. What about my personal belongings? My photos, my books? We'll bring everything you need later, Tamsin smiled. Once you've settled into your new place. I realized I was trapped. They had planned everything, thought of every detail. If I resisted physically, the orderlies would simply restrain me. If I tried to call the police, they wouldn't let me. Dad, Edric tried to take my arm again. Let's not make a scene, okay? The neighbors are watching. I glanced out the window and saw that several neighbors had indeed come out into the street, attracted by the unusual activity at my house. Among them was Riley. He looked concerned. I want to say goodbye to the neighbor, I said. There's no need, Tamsin cut me off. The sooner we leave, the better for everyone. At least to Riley, I insisted. He often helped me. Later, Edric said, taking a firm hold of my elbow. You can call him from Evening Dawn. I realized I had no choice. Either I went with them willingly, or they would drag me out in front of all the neighbors. That would be humiliating. All right, I gave in. But know that I'm doing this under duress. No duress, Mr. Holder, Miss Hendricks shook her head. Just concern for your well-being. I left the house accompanied by this strange procession. The neighbors looked on in bewilderment. Riley stepped forward. Are you all right, Mr. Holder? He asked. Everything's fine, Edric replied for me. Dad's moving to a nursing home. They'll take good care of him there. Is that true? Riley looked at me with concern. I wanted to shout, no, they're taking me away by force, but I knew it wouldn't help. What could Riley do against two orderlies in official documents? Yes, I lied, feeling bitter. It'll be better this way. Riley nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. If you need anything, call me, he said. You have my number. Thanks, I nodded, grateful for this small gesture of support. They put me in a minibus. Tamsin stayed at home, and Edric sat next to me. The orderlies took the front seats, and Miss Hendricks got behind the wheel. Don't worry, Mr. Holder, she said, looking at me in the rearview mirror. The trip will take about 20 minutes. At evening dawn, you'll find a cozy room and friendly staff. I remained silent. What could I say? I had been taken from my own home against my will, with a minimum of belongings, without the opportunity to say goodbye to my neighbors or gather the things that were truly important to me. Dad, Edric put his hand on my knee, I know you're angry right now, but later you'll understand that this was the right decision. Right for whom? I pushed his hand away. For me or for you? For everyone, he sighed. You'll get professional care, companionship, entertainment, and I'll know you're safe. What about the house? I looked him straight in the eye. What will happen to my house? I'll look after it. Edric looked away. Maybe do some minor repairs. The roof leaks, remember? The roof is fine, I shook my head. I checked it last month. Well then, there are other problems, he shrugged. In any case, don't worry. The house will be fine. I didn't continue the conversation. It was obvious that Edric was already planning what to do with the house. Perhaps he and Tamsin had even found a buyer. The thought made me bitter. The minibus pulled onto the highway. I looked out the window at the houses, trees, and cars rushing by. My life was falling apart before my eyes, and there was nothing I could do about it. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to a large building surrounded by a well-kept garden. Evening Dawn looked impressive, a 3-story red brick building with white columns at the entrance, almost like the glossy brochure Edric had shown me. The orderlies helped me out of the bus, although it wasn't necessary. I could walk perfectly well on my own, but apparently they were afraid I might try to escape. In the lobby, we were greeted by a smiling middle-aged woman in uniform. Welcome to Evening Dawn, Mr. Holder. She held out her hand. I'm Sandra Johnson, the head nurse. I'm glad to welcome you to our big family. I didn't respond to her handshake. I didn't want to pretend that I was happy to be there. First, we'll do a little medical exam, she continued, unperturbed. It's standard procedure for all new residents. Then I'll show you to your room, the dining room, and the common areas. Do I have a choice, I asked. Of course, she smiled even wider. You can choose whether to start with the examination or the tour of the center. I meant, can I refuse to stay here? The nurse's smile became strained. Mr. Holder, your son has completed all the necessary paperwork. You are now a resident of Evening Dawn. I assure you, you will like it here. I realized it was useless to argue. These people saw me not as a person with the right to choose, but as a source of income, a patient who should be grateful for being taken care of. Let's start with the medical examination. The sooner we get this over with, the better. Edric, who had been standing nearby the whole time, patted me on the shoulder. That's right, Dad. A positive attitude is the most important thing. I wanted to hit him, but I restrained myself. The last thing I needed was to be labeled aggressive and pumped full of sedatives. The medical examination was quick and superficial. The doctor, a young man with a name tag that read Dr. Peterson, took my blood pressure, listened to my heart and lungs, and asked a few general questions about my health. Then he filled out some form and handed it to the nurse. Everything's fine, Mr. Holder, he smiled. You're in great shape for your age. Then why am I here? I asked bluntly. Dr. Peterson looked embarrassed. Well, prevention is better than cure, you know. Here you will be under constant supervision, which will reduce the risk of complications. What complications? I don't have any serious illnesses. Age-related changes, you know, he said, clearly feeling uncomfortable. Anyway, welcome to Evening Dawn. After the medical examination, Nurse Sandra showed me to my room on the second floor. It was a small but clean room with a single bed, a wardrobe, a table, and an armchair. In the corner was a tiny bathroom with a shower. All rooms are equipped with an emergency call button. Sandra pointed to the red button by the bed. If you feel unwell or need help, just press it and the staff will come immediately. I looked around the room. It was faceless, sterile, like a hospital ward. It was nothing like my cozy home, where every item had a story and held memories. The maids will unpack your things, Sandra continued. Lunch is at 1 p.m. in the common dining room. After lunch, we have handicraft classes in the recreation room. You can join if you want. What if I don't want to? I asked. Participation in all activities is voluntary, she smiled. But we recommend that you actively participate in community life. It helps you adapt more quickly. Edric, who had been following us the whole time, nodded approvingly. See, Dad? It's very nice here. The room is cozy, the staff is caring, and there's lots of entertainment. I remained silent. I didn't want to make a scene in front of the nurse. Well, I think we're done. Sandra headed for the door. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask any of the staff. We're here to help. She left, leaving Edric and me alone. Well, he asked, clearly expecting approval. Not so bad, right? Get me out of here. I stared at him intently. Right now. Dad, he sighed. We've already discussed this. You'll be better off here, safer. I was safe in my own home, I persisted, until you decided you had the right to control my life. I'm doing this for you. Edric began to lose patience. Why can't you understand that? Because it's a lie. I moved closer, looking him straight in the eye. You're doing this for yourself, for the house you plan to sell as soon as I'm here. Edric looked away. That's not true. No? Then swear you won't sell the house, swear on your mother's memory. He was silent, and that silence spoke louder than any words. I thought so, I said, turning away toward the window. Beyond it was a well-kept garden with gazebos and benches where elderly people sat. My new neighbors. Dad, Edric came up behind me and put his hand on my shoulder. I know this is hard for you right now, but this really is the best solution. The house is too big for one person. It requires constant care. Enough, I shook off his hand. Just go away, I'm tired of your lies. Edric sighed but didn't argue. Okay, I'll leave you to rest. I'll come visit tomorrow and bring some more things. Don't bother, I didn't turn to him. I don't want to see you. You're just upset. He headed for the door. You'll feel better tomorrow. I heard him rummaging in his pocket. Here, by the way, Edric put something on the table. The house keys. I made a copy for myself, so don't worry. I'll keep an eye on the house. I turned around and saw a bunch of keys on the table. The front door, the garage, the shed in the backyard. All my keys. It'll be better this way, Dad, Edric added, looking at me with feigned concern. I'll keep an eye on the house. With that, he left, closing the door behind him. I was left alone in a strange room, in a strange building, among strange people. In just a few hours, my life had been turned upside down. I walked over to the table and picked up the keys. They felt heavy in my hand, as if they weighed a ton. These small metal objects symbolized everything that had been taken from me, my home, my independence, my dignity. Sitting on the bed, I felt tears welling up for the first time in this crazy day. But I didn't allow myself to cry. Not now. Right now, I needed a clear head. Because despite the seemingly hopelessness of the situation, I wasn't going to give up. Edric could take my home, but not my will. And if he thought I would just accept this betrayal, he was sorely mistaken. I hid the keys in my pants pocket. They might come in handy. For now, I needed to look around, understand what I was dealing with, and come up with a plan of action, because I wasn't going to give up. The first few days at evening dawn merged into one endless, dreary stream for me. I wandered the corridors, sat in the common room, mechanically ate tasteless food in the dining room, all in a state of numbness, as if what was happening was a bad dream from which I could not wake up. The staff was polite, even friendly, but behind that politeness I sensed condescension. To them, I was just another old man who needed supervision, incapable of making decisions for himself. Mr. Holder, it's time to take your medicine. Mr. Holder, would you like to join the yoga group? Mr. Holder, your son called and said he would visit you on Sunday. Edric did come on Sunday. He brought another bag of stuff, a box of chocolates, and a fake smile. I didn't say a word to him. I sat in my chair, looked out the window, and ignored his chatter about how lucky I was to be in such a wonderful place. An hour later, he left, promising to come back next week. I didn't respond. My silent protest lasted 3 days. I refused to participate in any activities, barely answered the staff's questions, and ignored attempts by other residents to strike up a conversation. Nurse Sandra tried several times to get me out of the state, but I remained adamant. On the 4th day, an elderly woman approached me and introduced herself as Dr. Elizabeth Murray, the center's psychologist. Mr. Holder, she said, sitting down next to me in the common room, I understand that you are going through a difficult period of adjustment. That's normal. Many of our residents go through this. I'm not a resident, I replied, speaking in a complete sentence for the first time in days. I'm a prisoner. Dr. Murray didn't seem surprised. You feel like a prisoner because you're here against your will. That's understandable. But I assure you, your son had the best of intentions. Really? I smiled bitterly. I wonder what best intentions would cause a son to take his father away from his own home, without warning, with a minimum of belongings, without even the opportunity to say goodbye to his neighbors. Sometimes relatives make decisions that seem cruel, but are actually dictated by concern, she said softly, but I sensed insincerity. Your son was concerned about your safety, your health. My son was worried about my house, I interrupted. More precisely about how to get it. Dr. Murray shook her head. Mr. Holder, I understand your feelings, but bitterness and resentment will not help you adapt to your new reality. Accept the situation as it is and try to make the most of it. We have many interesting activities, opportunities for socializing. You don't understand, I looked her straight in the eye. I'm not going to adapt. I'm going to get out of here. I'm afraid that's not possible, she sighed. Your son has filed all the necessary paperwork. From a legal standpoint, I am a competent citizen who is being held against his will. I sat up straight in my chair. And believe me, I will find a way to prove it. Dr. Murray looked at me with skepticism, but also with some respect. I suggest you attend our therapy sessions. They can help you deal with your anger and accept the changes in your life. Thank you, but no. I turned away toward the window, signaling that the conversation was over. She left and I remained seated, staring at the sky outside the window. Something changed inside me after that conversation. The anger and despair that had paralyzed me the first few days were replaced by a cold, firm determination. I would get out of here. I would regain control of my life, and Edric would answer for his betrayal. But to do that, I needed help, and I knew who to turn to. At evening dawn, residents were allowed to use the phone in the lobby to call relatives and friends. Calls were logged. A record was kept of who the resident called and when. I had no doubt that Edric was being informed of all my actions, so I had to be careful. On the 5th day of my stay at the center, I decided to change tactics. I started responding to the staff's greetings and even smiling. I agreed to take a walk in the garden and participate in a chess tournament. Dr. Murray noticed these changes and praised me for my progress and adaptation. I smiled and thanked her for her concern. It was all a game. I wanted them to believe that I had accepted my fate, that I was no longer a problem. This gave me freedom of action. After a week of such exemplary behavior, I asked permission to call a friend. I was not refused. After all, I was now an adapted resident. I dialed Oberon's number. He answered after the 3rd ring. Oberon Finch here. Oberon, it's Garth, I tried to speak calmly, even though my heart was pounding like crazy. Garth, he exclaimed. Where have you been? I called you several times, stopped by that house. Tamsin met me there and said you'd moved to some retirement home. Evening dawn, I said. Adric brought me here. Against my will, there was a pause. I thought so, Oberon finally said. When I saw Tamsin at your house, I knew something was wrong. She was acting like she already owned the place. Oberon, I need your help. I lowered my voice even though there was no one around. I have to get out of here and regain control of the house before they sell it. I've already checked, Oberon said. The house is still officially registered to you. Edric can't sell it without your signature, at least not legally. That was good news, but I had no doubt that my son would find a way around the law if necessary. Listen carefully, Oberon continued. Can I visit you? As a friend, just to check on you? I think so. Visitors are allowed here. Good. I'll come tomorrow. And Garth, hang in there. We'll figure something out. I hung up the phone with a feeling I hadn't experienced since arriving at evening dawn. Hope. Oberon arrived the next day as promised. He brought fruit, magazines, and his trademark smile, which fooled everyone but me. I saw the anxiety and determination in his eyes. We were allowed to talk in the garden, under an old oak tree, away from the other residents and staff. But I still spoke quietly, fearing eavesdropping. They took me without warning, Oberon. They just came and took me away. I didn't even have a chance to pack my things. I know. He put his hand on my shoulder. Your neighbor Riley told me. He saw them take you away. You spoke to Riley? Yes, he was worried about you. He said you looked not yourself when you left. I felt grateful to my neighbor. At least someone had noticed that something was wrong with me. I have to get out of here, Oberon, and get my house back. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Oberon looked around to make sure no one could hear us. I have a plan, but it's risky. Yaminamom. I'm willing to take the risk. Good, he leaned closer. The house is still officially yours. Edric can't sell it without your signature or a court ruling declaring you incompetent. That ruling will take time, and I doubt he'll go that route. Too much red tape. So he'll look for a way to get my signature, I nodded. Or forge it. Possibly, but we can get ahead of him. Oberon lowered his voice to a whisper. You can sell the house yourself. Right now, I stared at my friend. How? I'm locked up here. Technically, you're not locked up. You have the right to visitors, to phone calls, and most importantly, you are still a legal citizen with the right to dispose of your property. I began to understand where he was going with this. Are you suggesting I sell the house before Edric has a chance to do anything? Exactly, Oberon nodded. I've already found a potential buyer. A young family willing to pay a good price. The deal can be done quickly, without any fuss. But how will we get the paperwork done? I'll have to sign papers, meet with the buyers. I've thought of everything. Oberon took a folded piece of paper out of his jacket's inside pocket. This is a power of attorney for me to conduct the transaction on your behalf. If you sign it, I can act as your representative. You won't have to go anywhere. I took the paper and quickly glanced over it. Everything looked legal. What about the money? Where will the proceeds from the sale go? To your account, of course, Oberon smiled. Fortunately, the house has always been in your name. Edric has no legal claim to it. I thought about it. The plan was risky, but feasible. And it was probably the only way to punish my son for his betrayal. All right, I nodded. I agree. But I need a pen. Oberon handed me a pen. I signed the power of attorney, trying to keep my hand from shaking. Now keep this in a safe place. I returned the paper to him. And act quickly. I don't know what Edric is planning, but I'm sure he won't sit idly by. Don't worry, Oberon put the power of attorney away. I'll do everything as quickly as possible. And you stay here, play the role of an adapted resident, and wait for news. With that, we parted ways. Oberon left, and I returned to my chair by the window with a new feeling, the expectation of justice. I spent the next few days in a state of inner tension. Outwardly, I continued to play the role of a man resigned to his fate. I participated in the center's activities, communicated politely with the staff, and even made a few acquaintances among the other residents. But inside, I was like a taut string, waiting for news from Oberon. Edric came on Sunday as promised. This time I greeted him with a fake smile, made small talk, and even asked about Tamsin and Jennifer. He looked surprised but pleased with the change. Glad to see you're settling in, Dad, he said as he left. I told you you'd like it here. Yes, you were right, I smiled, imagining the look on his face when he found out what I had done. On Wednesday, Oberon called me. I picked up the phone with my heart pounding. I have news, he said without preamble. The buyers have agreed to the price and I've prepared all the documents. The deal could be closed as early as Friday. So soon, I was amazed. I told you I'd find motivated buyers, Oberon said with satisfaction in his voice. A young couple. They just had a baby. They need a house urgently. And they really like yours. What's the price? I lowered my voice, even though there was no one around. Oberon named the amount, and I almost whistled. It was even more than I had expected. That's generous. The real estate market is booming, Oberon explained. Plus, your house is in a good neighborhood overlooking the park. It's a rare offer. Okay, I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Go ahead. And keep me posted. I will. And Garth, hang in there. I hung up with a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time. The anticipation of victory. On Friday, Oberon came by again. This time he brought a folder with documents. Everything is ready, he said when we settled down in the garden under our oak tree. I just need your signature on a few papers. I looked through the documents. A purchase agreement, a deed of transfer, some other legal forms. Everything looked correct. Is that all? I asked, signing the last page. Will the house be sold? Yes, Oberon took the documents. The money has already been transferred to an escrow account. After the transaction is registered, it will be transferred to your account. What about Edric? Will he find out? When it's too late, Oberon smiled. It takes a few days to register the transaction. Everything will be officially finalized by the beginning of next week. I leaned back on the bench, feeling a strange sense of relief. The house I loved, where I had lived for 30 years, which held memories of Margaret, would now belong to strangers. But at least not to Edric. He wouldn't get a cent from the sale. What do you plan to do with the money? Oberon asked. I thought about it. The amount was substantial, enough to provide me with a comfortable life for the rest of my days, even with medical expenses. I haven't decided yet, I replied honestly, but I definitely won't leave it to Edric. I understand, Oberon nodded. You can take your time with this decision. The money will be safe in your account. What about my stay here? I glanced around the evening dawn grounds. Now that I no longer have a home, where should I go? I've thought about that too, Oberon leaned closer. I have a real estate agent friend in Brighton. It's a small town on the coast about 100 miles from here. He found an apartment there with an ocean view. It's small but cozy, and the price is reasonable. An apartment by the sea? I like the idea. Sounds good. What's more, Oberon continued, there's a community for retirees there. Not a nursing home, but a community. Independent people who just live nearby and help each other out. No nurses watching your every move, no scheduled activities. It sounded like paradise after evening dawn. I want it, I said decisively. How soon can I move? As soon as the house sale is officially registered. Let's say by the middle of next week. Oh, how will we explain my departure from here? Edric paid for my stay. Technically, Oberon smiled, he paid with your money. Insurance covers part of the costs, and he planned to cover the rest from the sale of the house. But even if he had paid out of his own pocket, you still have the right to leave. You're not a prisoner, Garth. You're a capable citizen who can live wherever you want. I nodded, feeling the warmth of those words spread inside me. A capable citizen who can live wherever he wants. Not a helpless old man in need of constant care. So, the plan is this, Oberon summarized. We wait for the house sale to go through, then I'll register the purchase of an apartment in Brighton in your name, and you'll move there. It's simple. What about Edric? What will happen when he finds out? Oh, he'll be furious, Oberon said, unable to hide his delight. But there's nothing he can do. The house will already be sold, the money will be in your account, and you'll be in your new apartment by the sea. It's legal and irreversible. I like this plan. It was a fair legal response to my son's betrayal. Thank you, Oberon. I shook my friend's hand. I don't know what I would have done without you. That's what friends are for, he smiled. Now I have to go. I need to finalize the deal on the house. He left, and I remained sitting under the oak tree, watching the clouds and thinking about how strange life can be. A week ago, I was in despair, feeling betrayed and helpless. Today, I took a decisive step toward regaining control of my life. That evening, I received a call from Oberon. It's done, he said. The documents have been submitted for registration. In a few days, the house will officially change hands. Thank you, I felt a strange sense of relief. How are the new owners? Are they happy? Very, Oberon smiled. They're already planning where to put the crib and how to landscape the garden. They're good people, Garth. They'll take good care of your house. That was important to me. Despite the bitterness of recent events, I wanted good people to live in the house where I had been happy with Margaret. I'm glad, I said sincerely. The house deserves a family. Over the weekend, I felt a strange calm. For the first time in a long time, I slept without nightmares, ate with appetite, and even found the strength to play chess with another resident, an elderly mathematics professor. My plan for revenge was beginning to take shape, and that gave me the strength to endure evening dawn a little longer. On Sunday, as usual, Edric came by. He was in high spirits, talking about his work, Jennifer's success at school, and Tamsin's new hobby. She had apparently taken up gardening. She's even thinking of planting a small vegetable garden in your backyard, Edric said casually. You don't mind, do you? I smiled, imagining Tamsin with her manicured nails and disdain for any kind of physical labor digging in the dirt. Of course not, I replied calmly. Let her do what she wants. Edric looked pleased. By the way, Dad, there's something I wanted to discuss with you, he lowered his voice. About the house. It needs serious roof repairs and new plumbing. That's a big expense. And I was thinking, maybe it would make sense to sell the house. The market is booming right now, so we could get a good price for it. Part of the money could go toward paying for your stay here, and the rest could be invested to ensure you have a comfortable retirement. I struggled to keep from laughing. Did he really think I would believe this nonsense about a comfortable retirement? You know, son, I looked him straight in the eye. I think it's better to put this decision on hold. While I'm getting used to this place, I don't want to think about such serious things. Edric looked disappointed but nodded. Sure, Dad. There's no rush. We can come back to this conversation later. Later will be too late, I thought, but just smiled in response. After Edric left, I sat by the window for a long time, watching the sunset. Soon everything would change. Soon I would be watching a different sunset, over the ocean, from the window of my own apartment, bought with my money, by my decision, and Edric wouldn't be able to do anything about it. On Tuesday, Oberon called with good news. The deal is registered, he said. The house is officially sold. The money has been transferred to your account. I felt my heart racing. What about the apartment in Brighton? Everything is ready. I've made the deposit and signed the preliminary contract. All I need is your signature to complete the transaction. I'll come by tomorrow with the documents. Thank you, Oberon, I said, sincerely grateful. You're a true friend. You're welcome, he chuckled. See you tomorrow. I hung up and went back to my room. I sat down on the bed and, for the first time in a long time, felt myself smiling genuinely. The plan had worked. The house was sold, the money was safe, and a new apartment was waiting for me. All that remained was to tell Edric that he had lost. But that could wait. Everything in its own time. Right now it was important to finish what I had started. Sign the papers for the apartment, organize the move, start a new life. And Edric would find out about everything when it was too late to change anything. On Wednesday, Oberon arrived with the apartment documents. We met again in the garden, under our oak tree. He showed me the photos. A small but bright apartment on the second floor of a 3-story building with a balcony overlooking the ocean. Simple, functional furniture, large windows, freshly renovated. It's perfect, I said, looking at the photos. When can I move in? Tomorrow, if you like, Oberon smiled. The apartment is completely ready to move into. I signed all the necessary documents, feeling with each signature that I was getting closer to freedom. That's it, Oberon put the papers in his briefcase. Now you are the official owner of an apartment with a sea view. Congratulations. I smiled, feeling at peace. The plan had worked. The house was sold, the money was safe, and a new apartment was waiting for me. Edric would be left empty-handed, and I would have a new life by the sea. Justice had prevailed. Thursday began like any other day at evening dawn. I woke up at 6 in the morning out of habit, washed, got dressed, and went to the dining room for breakfast. The oatmeal was tasteless, as always, and the coffee was weak, but I didn't pay any attention to that anymore. My thoughts were far away, in Brighton, in a new apartment overlooking the ocean, where my new life would soon begin. After breakfast, I joined a group of residents for a morning walk in the garden. Nurse Sandra praised me for my progress in socialization. I smiled and thanked her. Let her think that I had come to terms with my fate and adapted to life in this place. It made my impending escape even more unexpected. At 10 o'clock, there was a lecture on healthy eating in old age. I had no interest in the topic whatsoever, but I went anyway. I had to maintain the image of a model resident. Sitting in the back row, I half listened to the monotonous voice of the nutritionist talking about the benefits of fiber and the dangers of salt, while mentally furnishing my new apartment. The lecture ended at 11:30. I was about to return to my room when Sandra approached me with an unusually serious expression on her face. "Mr. Holder, you have a visitor," she said. "Your son. He's waiting in your room." I was surprised. Edric usually came on Sundays, strictly on schedule, as if he were fulfilling an unpleasant duty. What made him come on a weekday? "Thank you," I nodded to the nurse. "I'll be right there." On the way to the room, I felt a slight uneasiness. Something had happened. Something had caused Edric to break his routine. Could he have found out about the sale of the house? But how? Oberon had assured me that everything had been done as quietly as possible. I opened the door to my room and immediately realized, yes, he had found out. Edric was standing by the window with his back to me, his shoulders tense, his hands clenched into fists. When he turned around, I saw an expression on his face that I had never seen before, a mixture of rage, distrust, and fear. "Dad," his voice trembled, "tell me it's not true." I closed the door behind me and walked over to the chair. I sat down, folded my arms on my knees, and looked at my son calmly. "What exactly, Edric?" "Don't play games with me," he almost shouted. "The house! You sold the house?" I nodded, keeping a straight face. "Yes, I did." Edric stared at me as if I had turned into an alien before his eyes. "How? How could you do that? You're here at evening dawn." "Through a trusted representative," I shrugged. "It's completely legal." "I'm still a legal adult, Edric. I have the right to dispose of my property." Oberon, Edric hissed. It was him, wasn't it? That old fox. He was here last week. I saw his name in the visitor log. I didn't deny it. There was no point. Yes, Oberon helped me, like a true friend. Unlike some people, Edric began pacing the room like a caged animal. His face flushed, a vein throbbing in his forehead. You had no right, he slammed his fist on the table. This is our family home. Jennifer grew up there. Mom lived there. And I lived there, I replied calmly, until you threw me out like a piece of trash. I did it for your own good, Edric raised his voice. You needed care, supervision. Really, or I smirked. Or maybe you just wanted my house. Maybe you and Tamsin were already planning how to spend the money from the sale? Or were you going to move there yourselves? Edric looked away, and I knew I had hit the nail on the head. We just wanted to help, he muttered. We're in a difficult financial situation. Mortgage, loans. So that's it, I shook my head. So it's all about money. Not caring about me, not worrying about my health. Money. Not only that, he raised his head. Yes, we needed the money. But we were genuinely concerned about you. You live alone. You're becoming forgetful. Forgetful? I interrupted him. Are you talking about how someone moved my things around while I was away? How my documents ended up in the kitchen cupboard and my glasses in the bathroom? How my blood pressure pills were replaced with some other ones? Edric turned pale. I don't know what you're talking about. You know, I looked him straight in the eye. You tried to make me look like a crazy old man who couldn't take care of himself. So you'd have an excuse to lock me up here and take over the house. Edric was silent, and that silence spoke louder than any words. But it doesn't matter anymore. I leaned back in my chair. The house is sold. The money has been received. Everything is legally documented. Money, Edric seemed to wake up. Where's the money, Dad? Is it in your account? We can use it to pay for your stay here, for medical expenses. I laughed. Even now, after everything, all he could think about was how to get my money. The money's already been spent, Edric. What? He stared at me in disbelief. All of it? That's impossible. The house cost a fortune. Not all of it, of course, I smiled, but a significant part of it. I bought an apartment in Brighton with a sea view. An apartment? Edric looked as if he had been punched in the gut. Why do you need an apartment? You live here. Not for long, I enjoyed his confusion. I'm moving. On Monday. You can't, he almost shouted. You have a contract with Evening Dawn. I signed the papers. You signed them, but I didn't, I shrugged. I'm a capable adult, Edric. I can live wherever I want, and I've chosen Brighton. Edric collapsed onto the bed, burying his head in his hands. You can't do this, Dad. We were counting on that money. We have a mortgage, loans. Tamsin has already applied for a kitchen renovation. And I was counting on a son, not a jailer, I replied coldly. I was counting on my own flesh and blood not to betray me, not to kick me out of my own home under false pretenses, not to manipulate me for money. Edric looked up at me, his eyes full of anger and despair. You've always been selfish, he hissed. You've always thought only of yourself. When I was a child, you were gone for months at a time on trips. When I needed your support at school, at competitions, you were never there. You even spent less time with Mom than with your damn truck. His words hurt me, but I didn't show it. Yes, I wasn't a perfect father. My job as a truck driver didn't leave much time for my family. But I always provided for them, always made sure they had everything they needed. I did what I had to do, I replied calmly. Someone had to earn a living, pay the bills, pay for your education. I couldn't be at all your competitions, but I made sure you had the opportunity to compete. Money, always money, Edric smiled bitterly. You thought you could buy your way out of being a father with checks and Christmas presents? And now you're surprised I'm not crying at your bedside every day. I'm not surprised, I shook my head. I understand everything. You never really loved me, but I didn't expect you to go this far for money. It's not just money. Edric jumped to his feet. Do you really think you can live alone? At your age? With your health? Yes, I nodded. I can take care of myself just fine. And if I need help, I'll hire a caregiver. With my money. Of my choosing. Edric took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Okay, he said finally. Let's say you move into that apartment. Then what? Who's going to look after your health? Who will be there if you get sick? There's a good hospital in Brighton, I shrugged. And I've already met my neighbors on the phone. There's a whole community of retirees who help each other. People who have chosen to live independently, not under supervision. That's crazy. Edric shook his head. You won't last a month there. We'll see, I smiled. In any case, it's my decision. And my life. Edric suddenly changed tactics. His face softened, his voice became almost pleading. Dad, let's talk about this like adults. I understand that you're hurt. Maybe we did rush into moving to Evening Dawn. But selling the house, spending all the money on some apartment in a city where you don't know anyone, that's not a solution. It is a solution for me, I remained adamant. And not all the money has been spent. I've set some aside for living expenses and medical costs, if needed. How much is left? Hope flashed in Edric's eyes. I smiled. Even now, all he could think about was money. Enough for a comfortable life. And no, I'm not going to share that money with you. The hope in his eyes turned to anger. You can't do this to your own son. We're family. Family? I laughed bitterly. A family doesn't do what you did to me. A family doesn't manipulate, deceive, or betray. I didn't betray you, Edric raised his voice. I was looking out for you. No, I shook my head. You were looking out for my house. About my money. You didn't think about me for a second. Edric stared at me with hatred. You'll regret this, he said quietly. When you find yourself alone in a strange city, without help, without support, you'll regret it. Maybe, I shrugged, but it will be my decision. My mistake, not yours. Edric grabbed the jacket he had thrown on the bed when he came in. We're not done talking, he said. I'll talk to a lawyer. You're out of your mind if you think you can live alone in your condition. In my condition, I smirked. What's wrong with my condition, Edric? Dr. Peterson, the doctor here, said I'm in great shape for my age. Or did you find another Dr. Lancaster who will write that I'm out of my mind? Edric didn't answer, but his gaze said it all. Yes, that was exactly what he had planned. You can try, I shrugged. But keep in mind, the house has already been sold, the money has been spent, and the apartment is registered in my name. Everything is legal, and I've already spoken to a lawyer. A real one, not someone who's willing to sign any paper for money. He confirmed that I'm within my rights. Edric turned even paler. You thought this through, didn't you? Planned this revenge? Not revenge, I shook my head. Justice. You took my house away. I found a new one. You tried to take away my freedom. I'll get it back. It's fair. Fair? Edric laughed bitterly. What about my family? Tamsin, Jennifer? We were counting on that money, and I was counting on your decency, I replied. We were both wrong. Edric headed for the door but stopped at the threshold. This isn't over, he said without turning around. I'll find a way to contest the sale. You're not in your right mind. You couldn't have made such decisions on your own. Good luck with that, I smiled. But keep in mind, even if by some miracle you manage to do it, you won't get the money. I've already taken care of that. Edric gave me one last look full of hatred and left, slamming the door so hard that the windows rattled. I was left alone with a strange feeling of emptiness. There was no triumph, no satisfaction, only the bitterness of realizing how far this feud between father and son had gone. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. It was Nurse Sandra, alarmed by the noise. Mr. Holder, is everything okay? She asked, peeking into the room. We heard shouting. Everything's fine, I smiled. Just a little family argument. Nothing serious. Your son looked very upset when he left, she said, looking at me with concern. Are you sure everything is okay? Absolutely, I nodded. He'll get over it. We'll all get over it. Sandra left, clearly unconvinced by my words, and I returned to the window. It was raining outside, raindrops running down the glass, blurring the outlines of the garden. I thought about what had just happened, about Edric's reaction, about his threats. I had no doubt that he would try to contest the sale of the house. He might even find a doctor to confirm my incapacity. But Oberon had anticipated this. We had drawn up all the documents flawlessly, with my signature notarized in a video recording of the signing process, where I clearly stated my decision to sell the house of my own free will. As for the money, most of it did indeed go toward the purchase of an apartment in Brighton. The rest was transferred to a new account at another bank, opened in my name, but with special conditions that excluded access by third parties without my personal presence. Edric could rage, threaten, hire lawyers. It was all useless. I won this game. Oberon called me in the evening. How did it go? He asked without preamble. Just as you predicted, I sighed. He was furious. He threatened to contest the sale, hire lawyers, prove my incompetence. Let him try, Oberon snorted. All our documents are in order, and by Monday you'll be in Brighton, out of his reach. Do you think he won't find me there? He'll find you, but what can he do? You'll be in your own apartment, surrounded by witnesses to your sanity and independence. Besides, I've already found you a local doctor who will conduct a full examination and confirm that you are of sound mind and memory. I smiled. Oberon was always so thoughtful. Thanks, buddy. I don't know what I'd do without you. Don't thank me. His voice became serious. You deserve justice, Garth. After what they did to you, we talked a little more about the details of the move, and I hung up with a sense of relief. Everything was going according to plan. On Monday, Oberon would come for me, and we would go to Brighton. A new chapter in my life would begin. But one thought kept bothering me. Edric, my son, despite everything that had happened, despite his betrayal, manipulation, and greed, he was still my son, my only child, flesh of my flesh. And somewhere, deep down, I still loved him, even though I didn't respect his choices. Perhaps with time, when passions had cooled, we could at least talk. Not as father and son, that relationship seemed hopelessly broken, but at least as two adults connected by a shared past. Or maybe not. Maybe some bridges are burned forever, and all that remains is to move on without looking back. In any case, I made my choice. And for the first time in a long time, I felt that it was truly my choice, not a decision imposed by others. I went to bed with a strange sense of peace. A new life lay ahead, with new opportunities, and I was ready for them. Ready to start over at 72, by the sea, in a place where no one knew me, where I could just be Garth Holder, not the old man who needs looking after. Through my sleep, I heard someone quietly opening the door to my room. I tensed, ready for the worst. Maybe Edric had come back to continue the argument, but it was just the night nurse checking on the residents before bedtime. She apologized for the disturbance and left. I closed my eyes again, thinking that soon I wouldn't have to endure these nightly checks, this false concern, this treatment as if I were an incompetent child. Soon I would be free, and that thought was sweeter than any dream.